Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the United District podcast. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Brad Cox, Manchester United correspondent for Vavel UK. Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. And people who are watching on YouTube will know that we're doing this a bit differently. We've never had the camera turned on before. My ugly mug is now in shot. You can see me. You can see the lovely face of Brad as well. So, we're trying things a bit different. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever platform, have a little look at YouTube. You can see our lovely faces. So we'll dive straight into things. Mixed mood after last night. I say mixed, it's pretty negative, but we don't want to be too silly about things. We'll just jump into that. What did you think of the game last night as a whole? How do you think United got on, and how disappointed are you with the performance and the exit from the Europa League?
Well, I think it was one of those games where Manchester United fans expected to go through. I believe that if I was to ask you before the game, you'd have said, "Yeah, well, United will get through." But Sevilla if you've done your research, you know they're a tough side with their European experience, and especially with the players. You've got Eva Banega, who's been involved in all sorts of history when it comes to European matches. But United, you can't even say that United were that bad, because there was chances there for them last night. Martial could have bagged two, Fernandes. I mean, Rashford was off the pace, and I think he's been off the pace since the Project Restart, and since he's come back from his injury. So if he's got 3 to 4 weeks to recover, I think he's the one that needs it the most. I think he was really poor last night. Williams was another one who I thought, it showed his inexperience. Playing a left back position that he's done okay in this season, and he's stepped in for Luke Shaw, and I think it really highlights how much Luke Shaw means to this United side at the back. Sevilla were attacking out of the width of United, and they were getting in behind, and ultimately 2 crosses, 2 goals. That's how it went down for Sevilla, and that's how they ended up beating United. So definitely left back is something that needs to be addressed. There is an issue there, but then there's also the issue of goals up top. I mean, you've got Anthony Martial, who's having his best season with 23 goals, I think he ended on. And then you've also got Bruno. I mean, where would Manchester United be without Bruno? I do not know. But there are still issues in this side, and I think last night's performance does prove to the fan base that there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Do you think there's, you talk about sort of the technical aspect of things, just the squad not being good enough in some places, which I think we're all in agreement on. Do you think there's a mentality problem? 3 semi-final exits, has there got to be questions asked about the mentality of this side?
I mean, you can call it a mentality issue if you'd like, but, you've still got Paul Pogba in that side. He's won the World Cup. I mean, there's no mentality issue there. He's, people do forget that he's won a World Cup, and with Juventus, he's won the league there. So, I mean, if he's the £90 million player that United fans expected to be taking this team to a new level, which he's not managed to do. I mean, with United fans, they've been up and down. On Pogba, they've been like, yes, we're a much better side with him, and then without him, the United weren't too bad either. But the mentality issue, I don't know if it's as easy as that. I'd more to call it an experience issue. I mean, Maguire is a captain who leads on the pitch. In these Project Restart games where there's been no fans, and I've been at United games. Luckily enough, I've been inside the stadium. You can hear Maguire. He's so loud. He's always screaming, and he's directing orders, and then the players do follow on from that. But I think, like you said, mentality issue. I think that's got to be in front of goal, because the amount of chances United had in that first 15 minutes after the second half, it could have been 3-1 or 4-1, but they failed to take them, and Sevilla made them pay.
You talk about Maguire there. That's someone that's divided opinion. I'm someone who's been critical of him, not so much his quality last night, actually, because I thought he had a good game, Maguire, especially late on when Sevilla were looking to catch us on the break. He seemed to be a bit of a one-man defence, really, a bit of a wall back there to avoid it becoming 3-1. But a lot of people have doubted his leadership. As you say, you being in the stadium have heard him be vocal. Do you think this team lacks leadership outside of him and perhaps Fernandes? Do you think there's a bit of a void there? Because I think that's definitely something that people have discussed.
I think there's definitely been a lack of leadership for United over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and I think they finally found it in Harry Maguire. I mean, the last captain was Ashley Young, who is he a natural born leader? I don't really think Ashley Young is. Whereas I think Harry Maguire is. He's got it pretty much nailed down. You know, he takes control, and you could see in his press conference last night when he was questioned about the exit, how much it meant to him, and that he expects a lot better from United, and that's what United fans want to hear. They want to hear his captain be disappointed in that result, because at United you need trophies, and this season they've not won a trophy, and it's the third season in a row, which is the first time since 1987 to 1989. So I think Maguire admitting that is a failure for Manchester United, I think is a step forward in the leadership department. But with that being said, are there any other leaders on the pitch other than Maguire? I don't know. You'd like, as for United fans, you'd like to see Pogba step up. You'd like to see him grab a game and take it to the opposition, and he hasn't been doing that, or at least he's not done that enough for United fans to enjoy. And then I don't think Victor Lindelof's a leader. I think he's okay as a centre back. I think maybe he was at fault. Maybe it was a deflection for that second goal. I'm not too sure if you can put all that blame onto him last night. But Ollie said in his press conference last night that about the Lindelof and Bruno argument. He was saying that he wants players to hold each other accountable for their mistakes. He wants them to recognise their mistakes, which is good. And I think that's what Bruno brought last. I mean, when have you seen that sort of passion from a United player over the past year? When have you seen each other shouting at each other in fury? You've not seen it. So I think that's a good sign, that argument.
No, I completely agree with you on that. You know, I remember similarly, I'm a big Jose Mourinho fan, as many will know. You know, Lloris and Son were the similar spat for Spurs, and a lot of people seem to be very vocal about that, saying that, you know, there's a problem in the dressing room and that Mourinho perhaps has carried this toxic atmosphere. I just thought it was absolute rubbish, and I agree with what you've said there about Bruno and Lindelof. The same thing, as you know, it is a sign of standards being held, and a club like Manchester United, there's standards that you've got to have. So yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. Talking about Paul Pogba, what do you think of his season since the restart? Have you seen enough from him? Do you think there needs to be more? He's obviously been playing in quite a reserved role, in that Bruno's been the man allowed to be deployed in a more attacking sense. So what do you think of Pogba since the restart?
Well, I think when Paul Pogba was reintroduced in that Spurs game, United were already, what were United chasing a win? They were 1-0 down, weren't they?
Down, yeah.
Yeah, 1-0 down when he came on, and he won the penalty. So I think that was the sort of player that Paul Pogba can be. But can he be that player when he's not got a holding midfielder behind him? I don't think he can be as free. I don't think. I don't even know if it's Solskjaer trusting him to get back, because I just don't think he wants to go forward and put the team at risk. But I think what Paul Pogba needs to do is he needs someone alongside of him, whether it be Jack Grealish or a holding midfielder. He needs someone alongside him that's a little bit more sturdy. Nemanja Matic, perfect example. He's been excellent since the restart. He gave Pogba that freedom to go a little bit more forward. But he's a bit too old now for the Premier League. I think Nemanja Matic has personally slowed down severely, and I think that's why he didn't start yesterday, because the niftiness of those severe midfielders, they could quick little turn and they're in behind Matic. Very simple. But if you were to get a man with that confidence and quality on the ball like Matic to provide a little bit of comfort for Pogba, then Pogba can be unleashed and he can join Bruno up top. Because, I mean, when you think you've got Luke Shaw, if this is the starting lineup for United next year, you've got Luke Shaw, you've got Lindelof, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka. That's a decent defence there. And then if you put just one more holding midfielder in front of them, you don't need two. You don't need Pogba to sit back. You can allow him to go forward, just like Bruno has been doing. And Bruno's enjoyed great freedom. I remember when he first came, I was watching him in his Wolves game was his debut.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he playing on the wing? Is he playing as a midfielder? Is he a centre forward almost? And that's the type of freedom that I think Pogba wants. And if Pogba is to get that freedom, I think United fans will see a very different side to him.
Do you think, though, is there enough balance there? You know, you say about a holding midfielder to perhaps replace Matic. You know, Declan Rice is the man who I've always courted as perhaps his best replacement. I don't know what your opinion on Rice is. Do you think there's enough enough cover there, though? Do you think, with Bruno, who obviously, as you say, goes beyond Martial at times, pressing extremely high, do you think there's enough cover with Bruno and then for Pogba to be freed up as well with just one holding midfielder?
I think from a Man United mentality for you and your fan base,
Mm.
you need to have trust in the men up top. They're ultimately the people who are going to be scoring you the goals and getting you the 3 points. Yes, you have to worry about defending, of course, but I mean, you look at two very different styles of football. You said you rated Mourinho and the way he, he is a very defensive manager nowadays, and hitting them on the counter attack, which Sir Alex Ferguson did do that time and time again against. He gave respect to bigger clubs. But if it's giving him enough room, I think with United, you've got to attack is the best way of defense for United. I just think if you're going to go back to the way the glory days happened, it was scoring more than the opposition. That was just how Sir Alex did it. So I think you've got to kind of worry about getting the goals before you can worry about the gaps at the back. And that, if you look at it, that's what Pep Guardiola's done with City. He's kind of thought, right, yeah, I've had a few injuries this season, but we're just going to outscore you. We're going to score more than you. Simple as. And Liverpool, to a certain extent, have done that. They've conceded their fair share amount of goals this season, but they've just managed to score 3 or 4, and that's where the success has come from.
I know this is a bit of a tough question. It's one that I've asked quite a lot of people. This is Solskjaer's first full season as permanent manager. Seems to have been going on for a while. We seem to forget, I think, that this is his first full season as permanent manager. How do you think he's fared? Do you think it's been a successful season? I think this is something that perhaps divides opinion. I know where I stand on it.
The easy way for fans of Manchester United to look at it is it's a disappointment. There's no trophies, and you've only finished third. But if you take that away, you've got Champions League football. You've got that attractiveness to bring back to Old Trafford, where it's been missing for multiple seasons now. They're entering a busy transfer market here, and to pull Jadon Sancho to this club without Champions League would be about wages. And that is what United have struggled with recently, with no Champions League football. They have only the players have only been attracted for the wages and their money, which we've seen has failed. It has ultimately been a failure. And, the question was asked last night about Solskjaer, like, do you think you need a marquee signing? And I think if that was Jose or Louis van Gaal, he would have been peer pressured by Woodward to say, yes, we need a marquee signing because it looks good on your Adidas sponsorship deals. And he's on, when we announced Pogback, it was a big marketing deal. Whereas Solskjaer said, no, I don't need any marquee signings. I just need the right mentality of the players. He said, if or when we bring them in, he never gives too much away in his press conferences. Very smart. But I think that's why it's been a success for United this season. Is, look, step one was to get back into the Champions League. That's been ticked off. And then it would have been a bonus if you won a trophy, wouldn't it? A trophy is always a bonus at the end of the season because league position is always top priority. So I wouldn't say it's been a disappointing season. I would say Solskjaer has done better than most 40 would have.
Yeah, well, this is my point as well. Yeah, just to clarify, I think it has been a successful season. But by the way, there were times when we looked down and out. To be honest, January, February time, the game at Old Trafford against Burnley is one that really kicks out at me as a game where I just thought, like, we just looked terrible. There was sort of that toxic atmosphere was starting to creep back in, I thought, as well. But luckily, we turned it all around. I mean, the stop came at a good time for us before the restart, in that we were on a good run of form. Everyone was sort of upbeat about things again by that point. And then after the restart, we kicked on and got the job done. So yeah, it's hard to complain. It's a shame, obviously, about the 3 domestic competitions that we've knocked out of. Sorry, the 2 domestic competitions in the Europa League that knocked out of in the semis. But what can you do? Moving on, looking ahead to next season. It's a tough one, really, isn't it? I don't think we're good enough to mount a title charge. Yeah, I think many would agree with that. And even with Jadon Sancho, that still is a tall order. What do you think Solskjaer needs to do next season? What are the target? What should the targets be for Manchester United?
I think first to go off away from football wise, he's got to get consistency.
Mm.
I think with United, this season there's been a lot of opportunities for new players, which is very good. You've brought in Mason Greenwood's come onto the scene, and look how good he's been.
Mm.
But at the start of the season, you wouldn't have said Greenwood would have scored this many goals. What was it, 17 or 18, I think?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have said that. So those are 18 goals that have kind of come from nowhere. And you take those goals away, and that would prove worry for United.
Mm.
So in this transfer market, I think Solskjaer's got to start looking at depth. I personally don't think 108 million should be spent on one player. We've seen it with, Lukaku, 75 million. 30 million difference, but it's still a hell of a lot of money. I think what Pep has done at Manchester City, he's brought in 3 to 5 players for the same amount that United spent in one transfer on 2 or 3 players. I think that's what United have now got to do. They've now got to focus on depth, and fans are saying, "Do we need Grealish? We've got Pogba, and all this." I think, yeah, but if Pogba decides he wants to have a little ankle vacation, then Grealish has to come in. And you can't really rely on Fred to do the job of Pogba. I think Fred's done an excellent job. Don't get me wrong; he's stood in for the missing Pogba, and McTominay as well. They've stepped up, but are they as creative? I don't think so. And then Martial and the left back position. Williams and Shaw. And centre back is a massive one. If Lindelof gets injured, you're an injury away from either Eric Bailly or Phil Jones starting for the rest of the season. That cannot be the case for a team of Manchester United's calibre. You've got to go into this transfer market, splash the cash on the right players, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said last night. He's got to be 100% sure of their mentality. And I think missing out on that Dybala deal last year was a blessing in disguise, because if United bought Dybala, Bruno wouldn't be here. Bruno would not be at Old Trafford as we speak. And Dybala would have been that Adidas marquee signing, wages and wages. That was all he would have been looking for.
Mm. So we've just touched on this transfer market. We'll move into it fully now. Dive into it. You said there not to spend 100 million on Sancho. Is that a suggestion that you think we shouldn't pursue Sancho any longer?
Well, I think this is how it should be going in order. If you've got 3 or 4 players that are willing to sign for Manchester United, if they want to come to Old Trafford, then you can prioritise Sancho. Because if it falls away, there's 3 or 4 players you can go out and buy. But is there much point in prioritising Sancho when you don't know he's going to come? I don't think so. If you said to United fans, do you need one player to challenge for a title? You'd probably say no. What do you think? One player is enough? No.
No. But I think Sancho would make a big impact.
I think Sancho would make a huge impact on the team. I mean, he's English. He's got a connection with Rashford already. But is he going to win you the title? I don't think he is. I don't think he's an Eric Cantona and can change that whole team. So I think 3 or 4 signings need to be the priority. Keep Sancho, keep the deals going, keep the talks going. But if it comes to the point, late August, early September, and nothing's changed, you've got to give up. You've got to go after those 3 or 4 players that can give you that squad depth. A centre-back, Upamecano, we saw how incredible performance he put in again for Leipzig in the Champions League, and now he's in the semi-final. There was rumours saying that United have been scouting him for years, and the recruitment policy said no. Not sure if that's true, but Upamecano is one hell of a centre back, and if you partner him up with Harry Maguire, you might just have an excellent combination there of speed and power. With the power being from Maguire, and Upamecano is rapid and he's very comfortable on the ball. But then if you've got to bring in Jack Grealish as well for a midfielder. I think Grealish is the most suited to play for Manchester United. He's a Villa fan at heart, but he's always said he's always looked out for United, and he's supported them. And also for Grealish, he's that creative spark, and he's got the strength that a Premier League midfielder requires. He's built a bit different to the Spanish midfielders or the Argentinian midfielders. They're a bit more nifty and smaller, which would suit maybe a Pep Guardiola style of play. Whereas Grealish, he's strong, he'll run at players, and he can play good balls out wide, and he's a good set piece taker as well. So I think you've got, and then you've got to look at goal scorer. Paul Scholes said on BT last night, if Sancho's in that team, they score. And maybe it would be from Sancho, or maybe it would come from a goal scorer. And I think Ollie not bringing on Ighalo proved that he doesn't believe he's got goal scorers on the bench. And when you don't have goal scorers on the bench, and the players aren't putting them in the back of the net from the starting 11, then you're going to have big issues.
If not Jadon Sancho, then you've mentioned a few other positions there that you'd go and target, as a centre half, a depth attacking midfielder in Jack Grealish, and then a goal scorer as well, who I assume you mean sort of a backup to Martial in that sense. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think you've got to get a backup into Martial, and because his game doesn't necessarily suit every type of defense he's going to come up against.
Yeah.
And Rashford, he's had a terrible spell. You can praise him all you like for the work he's done off the field. He's been excellent, and he's done so much, and he deserves all the praise. But strictly talking about football, he's been incredibly poor. He's been very disappointing, and that is when you need another option. Either you push Martial to the left and you bring on a goal scorer, or you bring on a left winger like Sancho, or Greenwood takes his position. But you need that depth to be able to back yourself.
So apart from that, would you say we need a right winger? Would you say that's because in my eyes that's a priority, and that's why I want Sancho so much? And if not Jadon Sancho, you suggested maybe the money could be spread a bit better. Who would you go and target then for that right wing spot? Because it's a very saturated market.
It really is, and right wingers are not easy to come by. There's not many designated right wingers these days. A lot of the players is about midfielders or strikers or holding the ball up. There's not many attack down the right wing, get across into the box sort of thing. And Sancho's not even that type of player. If you watched him throughout the Bundesliga, he's not a designated winger. He's more of a forward. He's, we've all, a lot of people will have played FIFA. And those left forward and right forward positions are very close to the striker, and that sort of position is Jadon Sancho. He's not gonna hug the byline and get in behind players that way. He's gonna try and come inside and work well with Martial, which would be a very good connection to have. So if you don't get Sancho, you're struggling. I think you just got to go for another striker in that sense, and I'm not even too sure on which striker would suit Ollie's new style of football that he wants to bring in. But if you can't get Sancho, and you need 3 or 4 more players, then these talks need to be happening sooner and faster. And it's got to happen before September, because you want them to have a pre-season. And Bruno had to come into the side in January, couldn't get the deal done in August. I mean, where would United have finished in the league with Bruno for a whole season? You never know.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question about Ollie's three signings he made last summer, and Bruno as well. Just for a rating on 4 of them, if you'd like, out of 10. I don't know if you like to do ratings. Some people aren't objectified to those sort of things. But how do you think those 4 signings have done over the past season? Now that it's all said and done.
So I've heard multiple people and opinions on Harry Maguire and his season, but like I said, United need another centre back. If they didn't sign Maguire, they'd have been in real trouble at the back this season. You can talk about price tags, but Manchester United are the biggest club in the world, arguably. And the amount of money that comes in from revenue and sponsorship deals, 80 million is not, it's not gonna kill the club for spending that amount of money. But you've just got to think, where would they be without him? And I think they would have been in grave danger. So, and Maguire, you've got your money's worth. People can't be saying it's a waste of money when he's played 38 games in the season and he's played every minute. I mean, that's not a waste of money right there. It would have been a waste of money if he got injured and missed 6 months, because then people will judge him off his performance. But 38 games, 38 starts, and he played every minute. That's money well spent. And we discussed earlier, he's brought back that leadership, that passion to United. The likes of Roy Keane and Jaap Stam had, and Rio Ferdinand and Vidic. There was leadership from the back. So I think with Harry Maguire, I mean, you want a rating? I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I mean, people may call it critical, but to be a 9 or 10 out of 10, then, you've got to win trophies. Virgil van Dijk has been a 9 or a 10 out of 10 this season, and I don't think he's quite there yet. Wan-Bissaka, excellent. Excellent. I mean, you buy a right back to defend. You don't buy a right back to assist or score goals. You just don't. It just happens to be that there's a fantastic young English right back from Liverpool who can do that as well. That's the only reason why Wan-Bissaka has been looked down upon this season. It's because of Trent Alexander-Arnold and how amazing he has been for Liverpool. So Wan-Bissaka, I think, we've seen Fosu-Mensah come back, and if we didn't sign, if United didn't sign Wan-Bissaka, it would have been Fosu-Mensah or Diogo Dalot for the entire season. And I think Wan-Bissaka is an incredible improvement on both of those. So I would say Wan-Bissaka, I mean, he's not short of 38 games started either. So I think you've got to say he's up there in the high sevens, possibly an 8 out of 10. And then who else was the final one? So Bruno and Daniel James. Yeah. But I'll start with Daniel James because we all know how good Bruno has been for Manchester United. I think Daniel James, he had a tough start to since the transfer with the passing of his father. That's not easy at all to come into a brand new club with the responsibility of becoming Manchester United's right winger. It's a huge responsibility, and with that tragic passing, it's going to be difficult. But he got off to a flyer. First game of the season, bagged the goal against Chelsea. Yeah, it wasn't the smoothest goal. It took a deflection and went in, but it's a goal nonetheless. And then Southampton was an absolute rocket. So we've seen that Daniel James can produce these sorts of strikes and these sorts of performances. But I think Solskjaer made some tactical changes after that Manchester City game away at Etihad when United won 2-0, because after that and the introduction of Bruno, United's counter-attacking has not really been in play. So that takes away Daniel James's attributes. And Solskjaer brought him in to be quick on the counter. And you saw how electric he was at the Etihad and getting in behind, getting the balls in, working well with Martial and Rashford. And likewise away to Norwich, quick counter-attack down the right wing, beautiful ball into Rashford. I mean, people do, because it's so long ago, 10 months now since those games? People forget he was very, very good at the start of the season. But I just think it was Solskjaer's tactics that changed, and that's why Daniel James hasn't been so good, or statistically wise, he's not done as much as he would have liked to. So I think Dan James, he's not been a massive success, but he's also not been a waste of money. I think, £17 million, you would probably say, is a fringe player amount. He's not going to be used all the time. So 17 million, it's not too much. And he's still young. He's quick. And Ryan Giggs is going to work with him at Wales. So I think there's a lot of room to develop for Dan James if he can bulk up a little bit over the summers like Cristiano Ronaldo did. I mean, then no one's Cristiano Ronaldo because, he is who he is. Yeah. But Daniel James, if he can bulk up, then he can be similar to Ronaldo in that sense, that getting bigger and the more physical aspect of the Premier League can improve. So I think if you want another rating, I'd probably go for a 5 out of 10 for James. And there's a lot of room of improvement. Yeah, go for it.
I'm happy to hear a bit of praise there for Dan James, a player that I like to defend quite a lot. I think, as you say, I think you make a fantastic point in that it's because it's 10 months ago. Some people may have short memories on him. Let's not forget what he did at the beginning of the season. He was probably our best player for the first couple of months when we were enduring tough times. So yeah, I think just wanted to get that out there. Yeah, I think James has still definitely got a role to play in this squad, and he offers something a bit different, that direct pace down the right hand side, which we don't really have through anyone else. So yeah, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. And then, you've got Bruno as the final signing so far under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and where would United be without him? I really do not know. I don't think they'd be third, that's for sure. I think it could have been 6th or 7th, which is what they were predicted after that Burnley game, which I was at, and like you said, it was disgraceful performance. But I think that was the turning point in the season, bringing in Bruno Fernandes. I mean, yes, he's a penalty taker. That's not his fault. He is the penalty taker. And it's not his fault that he improves his own statistics and the goals are from penalties. That is not his fault. I don't get that argument at all. It's ridiculous. But Bruno Fernandes, he's not just scored goals and assists. He brought back a little bit of flair to United. He's reinstalled this attack that's to be scared of, and not even to mention the impact he's had on Anthony Martial, because him and Martial, I think his positive play has just contributed so well. That link up play for the Manchester City win, for that free kick over the top, and then Martial finished it. I mean, I don't think any other player on that starting 11 makes that pass to Martial. No one quick thinks like that, and I think that's what Manchester United have been missing so much recently. And people have been saying, yeah, he's been a bit more reluctant and a bit less involved in the goals since the restart. And I just think that's because of how many minutes he's played. I mean, well, he's started nearly every game. He's been available for United, and he's played every minute. He even played in that Norwich FA Cup quarter final, and he played 120 minutes in extra time. Then 2 days later, he went and played in the Premier League. So I think, he's got to have a rest, and whatever he's drinking when he comes off as sub, that milk tub thing, he absolutely downs that, because from our position in the press box, you can see them walk up, and he gets past this milk cart, and he's just down in it. So whatever it is, he's got to continue drinking that. But no, Bruno's been excellent, and he really has contributed for Manchester United incredibly well. So I think you've got to go for high 7, low 8 out of 10. But there's room for improvement, because he did fall away towards the end of the season. And, last night he got a goal, he got a penalty, and he converted. But he didn't really do too much away from that. I mean, he played a few beautiful balls in, and sometimes it just didn't work last night. I just think the case last night, it just didn't work, to put it into simple terms. But I think there's still some room for Bruno to grow.
I think he's a victim of his own standards that he set himself, to be honest, in that sense. Because actually, I thought last night, as you say, he played a couple of great balls that we would have, fawned over if it was Lingard or Pereira. Because it's Bruno, we expect so much of him now. He's been so good that we're not as impressed when he doesn't have a 10 out of 10 performance, for example. But I completely agree. Some great points there. Moving on to our last topic, it's the player of the season. Obviously a few days ago we thought it wouldn't be until, what was it, Friday, until this season would be done. But obviously we've been knocked out in the semis. It's a premature, perhaps, end to our entire season. Everything is now done. You can sit back and look at it in hindsight. Who do you think's been our player of the season? I think there's quite a few contenders for this, to be honest.
And I think there's a few contenders as well, because of how long the season has gone on for. I mean, before the winter, before the break from the coronavirus, I think you would have had to say Marcus Rashford, because of how excellent he was. He was in goal scoring form. Obviously, he suffered a back injury, and he's not been quite the same as no one probably would be. They wouldn't be, because I think that back injury was quite harmful to him. And then obviously Bruno, since he's come, it's probably been the player of the season since he's arrived. But I think the question is player of the season for Manchester United, and that means throughout the entirety of the campaign. And I think that has to go to Anthony Martial this season. I think the goals, the assists, the link-up play, his confidence, not only off the pitch but on the pitch, his attitude has really impressed. And I think when United was struggling under Jose Mourinho and under Louis van Gaal, it was those chances missed inside the box. And, Martial, you wouldn't say he was a clinical finisher back then. But this season, I think he's really proved himself as a striker. I think you can say he's worth a lot because of the way he can take the ball out onto the left wing. He can cut on his right foot and fire one from distance. Aldi said he'll score a couple of worldies once in a while, but now he's getting in the box and scoring, which is true. And if you actually, I did a piece on Martial, how he's living in the shadow of Bruno Fernandes. Bruno this, Bruno that, but it's Anthony Martial that deserves great praise this season. And I was watching highlights of all of his goals, and a lot more of his goals this season have been in the box compared to goals from past seasons where he's been out on the wing and cutting in. And similarly, if you watch 99 campaign highlights, all those goals are in the box. So it's from Solskjaer, himself. He was a poacher, so there's no surprise there that Solskjaer has had this impact on Martial, and he's been more clinical since he's been under the development of Solskjaer. So for me, player of the season has to be Martial for being so consistent and just being there for when United weren't at their best. When Rashford was injured, when Pogba wasn't playing, when Bruno wasn't here. Martial was there, and he was there to provide some stability for United up front and get the goals that they so needed.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good shout. I think many people would argue Martial's case as well. I don't know who I'd go with personally, to be honest. As you say, it's been such a long season, so many different bits and pieces, different segments, really, isn't it? It's a tale of two seasons, really, isn't it? It's a season of two halves, I should say, as the old cliche goes. Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I don't know if you've got any last words you'd like to say to the listeners.
No, I just very appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me, and I want to be back soon.
Yeah, no, of course, we'd love to have you back on. Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, Henry. Thank you very much.